Thanks for staying with us. Onward now. Let's return to the United States, where the Trump administration is ramping up efforts to fulfill a key campaign promise, and that is mass deportations. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is now targeting up to 3,000 arrests per day, with agents increasingly showing up in rental communities and issuing subpoenas, often without judicial approval, to obtain tenant records. At the same time, the Department of Housing and Urban Development is also pressuring public housing authorities to report immigration status and addresses of renters receiving federal assistance, including Section 8. The administration claims that the policy will free up housing for American citizens, but housing advocates warn that mass deportation could actually deepen the housing crisis nationwide. Tenant support groups are mobilizing, but fear among undocumented residents is also rising, with many now too afraid to even ask for help. Meanwhile, a British couple detained by the Taliban in Afghanistan for nearly 8 months have now been released. 80-year-old Peter Reynolds and his wife Barbie, who have lived in Afghanistan for nearly 2 decades, were stopped by Taliban authorities on the 1st of February as they tried to leave the country. The release was reportedly secured through Qatari mediation. The couple will first travel to Qatar for medical checks before returning to the United Kingdom, despite having lived long-term in Afghanistan's Bamiyan province. The Taliban claims the couple broke Afghan laws and were released following judicial proceedings, but the exact charges were never made public. Peter and Barbie Reynolds, who married in Kabul in 1970, had spent the past 18 years running a charitable training program, one that had even been approved by Taliban officials after they returned to power in 2021. The release comes after months of campaigning by family members who described these conditions of their detention as deeply distressing. Away from that, France has been rocked by nationwide protests and strikes, with over 1 million people turning out against sweeping budget cuts proposed by President Emmanuel Macron's government. The unrest is piling pressure on his new Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu. We have more in this report.
More than 1 million protesters took to the street across France, angry over budget cuts targeting essential public services. The strikes crippled Paris metro lines and disrupted daily life nationwide. Demonstrations turned tense in cities like Nantes, Rennes and Lyon, where clashes erupted between police and protesters. Tear gas filled the air as officers responded to projectiles from the crowds. In Paris, striking rail workers stormed the Economics Ministry briefly, lighting flares and leaving smoke in their wake. The unrest is a direct challenge to President Macron and his newly appointed Prime Minister as they face growing resistance to austerity measures. Critics say the proposed cuts impacting healthcare, education and unemployment benefit are worse than poverty and inequality. The Interior Ministry reported 181 arrests, an estimated 450,000 protesters outside Paris. But unions like the CGT claimed over 1 million people marched nationwide. As President Macron's government struggles to contain public anger, the battle over France's finances is escalating both in the parliament and on the streets.
In Asia, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te has stressed the importance of disaster preparedness during the country's annual National Disaster Prevention Day drill. The nationwide exercise aims to turn public awareness into practical safety habit through coordinated emergency response training. President Lai urged citizens to stay calm during a alert, reminding them that all messages will be clearly marked as a part of the official drill. He encouraged people to use the opportunity to review evacuation route and practice safety procedures. He also emphasized that regular drills help make emergency responses automatic, ultimately reducing risks for families and strengthening national resilience.